Share. Okay, we are live. This is Stephen R. of Zygote, and this is the Architects and Heroes live stream. And we have a very, very, very special guest here today. We've got Mark Pistel, founder of Consolidated, owner of the amazing Room 5 Records. Mark, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm very good. Thanks for having me, Stephen.
Excellent. Well, this is super exciting for me because I followed your career for quite some time, and I'm just going to do something a little corny here, but I want to start off this interview by reading your Wikipedia, right? Your Wikipedia entry.
All right, go ahead. I have no idea what it says.
Well, you can edit it since it's yours. You can completely go in and edit it too. So if you need to. But this is pretty astonishing. Mark Pistel is a producer, engineer, programmer, remixer, and songwriter who works out of the San Francisco recording studio Room 5. A founding member of Consolidated, has contributed to artists as varied as Until December, MEAT BEAT Manifesto, Tino Corp, Latin Soul Syndicate, The Disposable Heroes of Hypocrisy, MC 900 Foot Jesus, Machines of Loving Grace, Leadenhead, and Grace Jones. I mean, dude, come on.
That's fairly accurate. I've been at this for a long time, so yeah.
You have been, and first off, I'm a huge fan, so this is kind of, we've gotten to work together in another capacity as well, and I've just been such a nerdy fanboy from the jump that it's really just exciting for me to just be like, oh, I'm working with one of my favorite dudes. So all the fanboy shit out of the way.
Yeah, right on.
Man, how you doing? How are things up north in the Bay Area and at Room 5?
Well, it is what it is. We're living through some pretty strange times right now.
Yeah.
We've got, do I need to go into it? The state of California is still on fire.
Yeah.
We've got fascists running the country. We've got people of color getting killed in the streets. We've got right-wing militias randomly shooting people on the street. Let's see. Oh yeah, we're still in a global pandemic, an economic collapse. Hey, but
yeah,
but hey, all in all, I'm doing great.
Yeah, that kind of covers. It's such a weird time to be someone who's creative, someone who is in an industry that is normally affiliated with or associated with having a good time, and I don't know it, but Consolidated. The main, I think, focus of Consolidated, I felt like has always kind of been to shine a light on those things, even when they weren't so pronounced and out there as they appear to be now. I feel like a lot of the stuff that we're experiencing right now is kind of, it's always been going on. It's just that for the pandemic has really kind of shine a light on kind of that nonsense. But, in terms of Consolidated, first of all, can you not to jump right into that, can you tell me a little bit about your background, how you got started, things that you've done, that you were working on up to Consolidated, and maybe talk a little bit about how Consolidated was formed?
Well, sure. Like I said, I've been at this a long time. I grew up in the Midwest in a small town called Duluth, Minnesota. I came out to the Bay Area in 1980 and played with a bunch of local bands in the Bay Area. One was a club band called Social Fabric, which no one has ever heard of. Although in that band was my buddy Greg Senzer, aka Augie, a drummer who was a drummer in Until December. Anyway, through knowing Greg and our history, I came into the band Until December as a substitute bass player because they'd had a horrible car accident and their bass player got injured, and so I was called in as a fill-in. In one of the early tours, we did a bunch of shows on the West Coast. We actually opened for New Order a couple of shows, and we did like this 8-week tour with Gene Loves Jezebel, and yeah, it was interesting. So anyway, I came in as a substitute in Until December, but Adam Sherburne was the leader of that band and the main writer. And so during my time there, Adam and I met and immediately found that we hit it off musically, and yeah, so we were hanging out, and I ended up playing with Until December for about a year, a little more than a year. Brian, who was the original bass player, recovered from his injuries and ended up coming back to the band as a second guitarist, and then I wound up taking over as the bass player in the band. And eventually, Adam and I both decided to leave the band to start a new project, which was Consolidated. Mm-hmm. And so we floundered around for about a year with various other musicians, trying to find the right lineup, trying to find the right situation. And we had a number of different folks, including some members of the band Specimen. We had a little hybrid group for a while with a couple of the dudes from Specimen. And then eventually, he and I just continued working on. We started working with Philip Steer, who ended up being our drummer, and then another guy who was involved early on is this guy Jimmy Dixon, who later went on to work. He's a guy that worked in the tech industry and the music industry, and he was with us in the very beginning, but he left to pursue his other career, and we wound up, for the most part, being a trio. Myself, Adam Sherburne, and Philip Steer. We were the root of Consolidated, and but that's how it pretty much started. It's just association with Adam through until December.
So Consolidated is reforming, and I guess I don't know if there was ever an official breakup of the band, or if you guys just sort of hit the pause button. But I know that it was recently announced there's new Consolidated material, and that you guys are, I guess it's not super unknown, but you guys are working on a new record, right? You guys have put it out there on a new record. And can you talk a little bit about how you guys have reformed and what you're working on right now?
Well, yeah. So, I mean, yeah, the band actually did break up. I mean, we did a number of albums, and we did, I guess it was like 5 albums. We had like a 9-year run, and then I don't know, we got involved with a major label, and that was kind of the end of us. Bad idea signing to a major. Anyway, but yeah, I left the band officially in '96. Probably about 6 months after Philip left. So we did one tour without Philip, and then I left, and and Adam continued on. I think he might have made 1 or 2 other records with other folks, and he continued on with the name till finally he dropped the name, and I think he finally put it to bed by '98. Mm-hmm. Adam and I have remained friends over the years. He lives up in Portland now. I'm still in the Bay Area. And we're like siblings practically. I don't know what else to say, but we've maintained personal relationship over the years. And then there was a bit of interest, with all the political stuff going on. There were a lot of folks going like, "Oh, Consolidated needs to reform," and all this, and and for the longest time, my response to that was, "No, some young people need to start a new band that with a good political message." We're just it ain't gonna happen. But as it turns out, at the urging of a couple of folks, one in particular was Jason Novak, who runs Cold Waves. He had said, hey, if you guys do get together, be happy to put on some shows. And then we had some other interest from our old booking agent, John Jacobs in the Netherlands and in Europe. And, it was just encouraging. And then, there was Deftly D's Consolidated tribute record. We were really honored that a bunch of, I guess, younger folks kind of got together and did a bunch of covers of Consolidated songs. We were very, honored by that. And so anyway, all these things came together, and so around about January, when we could still gather socially, I had Adam down to my studio for about a week, and he and I got together. We invited Philip, but he wasn't interested. He's off on another career now.
Mhm.
And so we had Lynn Farmer, MEAT BEAT Manifesto, also another very close friend of mine, come down. And so Lynn and Adam and I just kind of jammed, I mean, really loosely, for about like a week. We're in my studio, and we recorded all of it. A lot of it was just meandering, but then there were some little gems there, some little grooves and things like that. And so I just started mining some of the gems out of the jams, and started developing them into tracks. And then I started sending those to Adam up in Portland. And, I guess in normal times, we would have had him come back down and actually record, vocals and guitar parts and things like that. But as it turns out, with social distancing and all this, we weren't really able to do that. So he recorded his parts up in Portland, really lo-fi. He's got a friend with a small home studio that he works with, where he recorded some of the stuff, and then literally some of the stuff was just recorded directly into an iPad.
Right.
So it's super lo-fi. So it's been a little bit of a technical challenge for me, but yeah. Anyway, so that's how it started, and now it's just kind of developed. And then I composed a few, and then Adam composed a few, and then we've been sending files back and forth, and yeah. So we've got basically a full-length record, pretty much ready to go. I'm just actually finishing up a few mixes this week, and then going to try to master the thing. We're going to do a double album, vinyl release on Cargo Records.
Awesome.
And that should be well. I hope to deliver probably within the next couple of weeks. So I think it's going to be probably late October, early November, depending on whatever their turnaround is. But we're it'll this album's going to be out before the end of the year.
That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah. And in the meantime, we've people may or may not be aware, we've released a few lead singles, and then had some folks remixing. The lead single is the song called Capitalism, and then we were lucky enough to get remixes from Bass Kittens and from Jack Dangers and from Joy Thieves and Daryl Hell. We've had just really some really cool remixes of the debut track. So
yeah, I've heard the Jack Dangers mix, and that is mind blowing. It's so
hey, it's Jack. What do you want, man?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and Capitalism, the first single, Capitalism. What's the second one called?
Oh God. Well, I'm not sure which one is officially the second one. There's one called "Music Is the Sound of Life." Is another one that's got a video, and that's more of a kind of a chilled out 6/4 groove. It's like almost like an Afrobeat thing.
Yeah, no, I like the fact that you guys are kind of playing with different styles now too. I think you as a producer have been working with such a variety of types of artists over time, that to kind of see that sound evolve a little bit. I mean, obviously, I'm a big fan of the industrial twinge of everything, and the work that you guys were putting out when you were on Network Records. That's sort of what's seared in my brain is the, I guess, consolidated sound, and the Capitalism. It was almost like you guys had not missed a beat. It was like,
yeah, well, that was kind of intentional. I do something that sounded like the old days, and that was that was the thing. And so we have one song that does that. The rest of the material, it's. I mean, I think a lot of it's really good. I don't know if
It's a different direction for you guys for sure, and I really dig it.
Yeah, it's going to be very diverse. I don't know if it's the record people want to hear, from Consolidated. Hey, man, it's been 30 years.
Sure. Yeah.
The two of us have grown as musicians and producers and writers, and we're not in the same place that we were 25, 30 years ago, and we were making these Consolidated records,
Right.
The ones that people know, and so we've evolved as people, and so has the music,
Right. Absolutely. And I think that's needed. There's nothing, I think bands tend to, when they start to become a parody of themselves, when the work that they do is just kind of a nod to things that they did before in the past, is that doesn't always end up well for anybody. So I think it's great that you guys are going in a different direction and playing with different things and bringing in those different influences into your work. When you guys release this new record, do you have a title for the new record?
Bunch of working titles. I think we might call it "Music Is the Sound of Life," which is the title of that second single that we released. That so far is the kind of working title. I don't know. We may come up with something darker and weirder, but
you gotta see what unfolds between now and release.
Yeah.
We could get darker and weirder, I guess. But so once, excuse me, once the pandemic has, I guess, simmered down and travel restrictions are lifted, are you guys planning on touring with the new record?
We are, yeah. We already have some shows lined up in the States. Whether those shows are going to happen or not, we shall see.
Sure.
But we've been talking to Cold Wave, so we have official dates with Cold Waves next year, and I've actually written them down here so I wouldn't forget them. It is March 21st, 2021. In Los Angeles at the Mayan Theater.
Awesome.
Is the first date. Then there will be April 1st in New York City, and I don't remember what the venue is. Sorry about that. And then April 4th, we have the Metro in Chicago. And so all these LA, New York, and Chicago are all Cold Waves dates. In fact, I believe LA and Chicago are both with Front 242. I believe.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm not 100% certain on those, but But anyway, so we're actually opening these shows, and then there's rumor about another show at Numbers in Houston at sometime in that time period, and then we're also looking at our old. We have our managers based in Europe. We have our old tour manager is acting like our manager right now. Mm-hmm. And he's setting up a bunch of dates in Europe for us as well. That'll be probably spring and summer 2021. Assuming that we're able to travel freely and it's safe to do so.
Yeah.
Hoping for the best. But, we'll see how it goes.
I know there's a lot of uncertainty in terms of the traveling, and different people have said different things. I had Sean Horton, who's the founder of Decibel Festival, on here a few weeks ago, and he was saying that they're pressing ahead for things in the spring and summer of next year. So there will be some type of tentatively. I mean, at least the venue owners and the people that are planning these events are there. And I saw you guys play, years ago, and I'm curious, looking at the current political landscape and looking at the material that you guys are doing now, and I like you had said, a lot of people are like, yes, Consolidated needs to make. I mean, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think Consolidated, at least the messaging from Consolidated and the way that you guys presented the material is kind of needed now more than ever. How are you guys kind of infusing, or I don't know if you guys have even had the conversation about how the political messaging is going to go into, I mean, obviously from it's really upfront in the music, right? But kind of on this bigger, social activism scale, and kind of as you have traveled with different folks while you were on tour before, how are you guys having those conversations about how you infuse that sort of political messaging into what happens on tour when you guys are playing?
Well, yeah, I mean, for anyone that's ever seen the band live back in the day, a big part of the show is that at the end of the show, we would usually do like a Q&A, like a little conference with the audience.
Mm-hmm.
We would literally hand the mic out to audience members and ask them about what's going on in their community. Basically it was just open. They could either comment about something we said on stage, or they could comment about what was going on in their community, or something going on with them personally, whatever it was. And so we always we'd open up this debate at the end of our shows, and sometimes it was super cool, and then other times it got heated and nearly violent, but we managed to I don't think violence ever broke out. We came close many times. But yeah, so and then the interesting thing is we would always record that, and then oftentimes those audience comments would wind up on our next album somehow, either in songs or in between songs or things like that. And it was a kind of our little ongoing social experiment art project, it's just something that we did.
Yeah.
And it's something I think is still important. Adam is really the political spokesperson for the band. Like, he's the lyricist, and so I kind of see myself in a supportive role in that regard. Hey man, I'm not I wasn't a political science major, so I know how I feel, but all I can say is what I feel personally on a personal level. I'm not going to, try to tell somebody else how to think, or what my, grand philosophy is, or something like that.
Sure.
And fortunately, I've got a guy with me who's very articulate, so I leave the majority of that to him. Honestly, I just like to make the beats, man.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it's sort of a collective effort, if you will. I think the process of kind of infusing. I mean, I think in a lot of ways that music is kind of inherently political anyway, right? There's a lot, I think, in that experience, but so Consolidated is coming out with a new record. There's a tour that's planned. That's incredibly exciting for fans like me who've been following you guys for a long time. But Consolidated, in a lot of very real ways for you, is just kind of the tip of the iceberg of the things that you have been involved with. I know that you've played with and toured with Hercules and Love Affair, MEAT BEAT Manifesto, Disposable Heroes of Hypocrisy. Like, you have different connections with all of these different bands, and I wondered if we could talk a little bit about that experience and talk a little bit about some of the bands that you've worked with and played with over the years.
Sure. Yeah. Well, we've already mentioned Until December,
right?
Which was kind of the first touring band that I ever played with, and then Consolidated. Basically, my run with Consolidated was between probably, I guess, 1988 to 1997, I want to say. And then later that same year in 97, of course, for those that aren't aware, we toured a lot. We became friends with MEAT BEAT Manifesto and toured with them a lot. Consolidated, MEAT BEAT were on bills together all the time. And I really, we always admired Jack's, studio and production skills. And so on our second record, in fact, every record after Myth of Rock, we invited Jack to come work in the studio with us. And so he often helped with additional production and mixing. And so, and because I'm the engineer of the band, Jack and I spent a lot of time, working together, and we became friends, close friends over the years. And so, yeah, when Consolidated broke up, it was right around the time John Wilson was leaving MEAT BEAT. And so Jack asked me if I wanted to, come and play with them. So I did. And my run with MEAT BEAT was really about 10 years, from 97 to 2007. Collaborated on several albums and a bunch of tours. Mm-hmm. And and then round about that, we weren't touring so often. I guess around 2008, I just haphazardly met Andy Butler from Hercules and Love Affair. And he just happened into my studio because he was in San Francisco, and wound up needing a place to do a remix. Had no idea who I was. I had no idea who he was. I think we actually met through like a Craigslist ad or something like that. And so he, so he happened into my studio, and then we started talking, and then he saw like some tour cases or something that had like, MBM stenciled on them. He's like, "What's that?" I'm like, "Oh, well, that's MEAT BEAT Manifesto. Yeah, this band I've been with." And he's like, "What? MEAT BEAT Manifesto?" I said, "Yeah." And then I was in Consolidated before. What? And he starts freaking out, And so that meeting with Andrew Butler wound up in me co-producing their second album, Hercules' second album, Blue Songs. And then I wound up touring with them for like, between 2008 and 2015. I was touring and collaborating with them, which was really interesting. It gave me a real appreciation for dance music. I mean, I've always been into electronic music and certain dance music, but Andy is very knowledgeable, and I learned a lot from him. About early techno culture and early house culture and the music around it.
You and those have been the bands that you've played with, but you've worked with so many different acts. Like, can you talk to a little bit about the work that you did with Disposable Heroes of Hypocrisy? I know Michael Franti now is just completely in
yeah, I guess Michael's done pretty well for himself. But
I gotta say, this is just from my perspective. I would have never, if I would have heard Disposable Heroes of Hypocrisy, Television Drug of a Nation, and put it next to like a Michael Franti song today, I would be like, no. So it's been really crazy to see that transformation.
I got nothing. Not gonna say
that. No, I mean, it's just, again, people have to evolve, and they've got to navigate their careers in different ways. It's just, whoa.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
But sure. I met Michael. I mean, I've known Michael Franti since he was like 19 years old. And he had a band before Disposable Heroes called the Beatniks. And there was a lot of cross-pollination. The drummer, Kevin Carnes, was the drummer of the Beatniks. And he and Adam Sherburne met in Houston, Texas in college, and the two of them actually came to the Bay Area together, and they had this band until December. They had this band called Metro Sensuous, and they came out to the Bay Area together, and then Adam went and did until December. Kevin and Franti and some other folks started the Beatniks. Anyway, long and short of it is Consolidated and the Beatniks used to share a rehearsal space, and we did shows together, and we were all friends, and we all hung out, and at one point the Beatniks broke up, and I was the guy with the sampler and the sequencer, and Michael asked me if I'd like to help him start making some new music, some solo music. And literally, and so I was like, yeah, sure, because I've always admired Michael. I mean, he's a brilliant guy, really talented and super articulate. So yeah, we started working. So the first what became Disposable Heroes of Hypocrisy started in my bedroom, in my little apartment on Fulton Street in San Francisco. So
Awesome.
we ended up doing one record for Alternative Tentacles, and then we did a second record that came out on Island, which kind of propelled Michael's career.
Yeah, no, I remember that vividly. I remember when that first came out, and it was in pretty wide rotation too. I mean, I know the video was out, and it was, there's a lot of push behind it, and I think that was, during that period of time, in the early to mid '90s, I think people were trying to really push like alternative whatever them, right?
Well, just to give you some idea, right when they signed, and Chris Blackwell was super supportive of Michael and his career. And the first thing he did is, of course, the other big band at the time that was on Island was U2. So Chris Blackwell put Disposable Heroes on tour with U2. That was like the first thing.
Really?
Yeah. So they were literally, I mean, we were working on, little records, and next thing you know, those guys are out, playing stadiums.
That's like arena
work. So yeah.
Oh, well, and I never knew that the Disposable Heroes of Hypocrisy had opened for U2. That, like, boy, to be at one of those shows, right? Like, that would have been wild.
Yeah.
So, can you talk a little bit about, so that was the work that you did with the Disposable Heroes of Hypocrisy. How can you talk to me a little bit about the Grace Jones, like working together with Grace Jones? Because I just saw a couple of days ago, I watched Bloodlight and Bammy. I don't know if you've seen that or not, but it's that documentary that basically follows her on tour, but it takes her back to Jamaica. It's a really fast, and to see her, in her early 70s, just kicking so much ass and just she's hula hooping and performing, and she's
she's a whirlwind. I've always admired her. She's amazing. And it was really interesting, being in her camp for a while. Again, I mean, the whole thing transpired because of my association with Disposable Heroes, and they're signing to Island. They really liked the production on the record, which I was heavily involved with, and I co-wrote a bunch of the material and engineered the record. So Grace had just been re-signed to Island right around the same time Disposable Heroes was being put out, and what I didn't realize at the time is that she'd already been through a couple of producers. I didn't have that information at the time. But I guess they thought it would be a great idea to put her with, with some young upstart and see what happened. Unfortunately, it wasn't super successful. We started out with the idea of making an album. We worked on and off for about a year. On the record, myself and I recruited Philip Steer at the time to help me with it, because it was a pretty daunting task, and working with Grace was slightly intimidating, to say the least. But she was cool, we all got along, but unfortunately, as time went on, things didn't completely happen the way we'd hoped they would. And what was supposed to be an album wound up being like a 4-song EP, and it came out with not a lot of fanfare. And
hey, you got a production credit on a Grace Jones song. That's
But I tell you, one of the big upside of the whole thing it was a really crazy experience, being in that world and rubbing elbows with those people. But the really, really positive thing for me was I was the producer on the session, and Island put us with this really great engineer, this guy called Paul Smykel, who's also known as Groucho. And Groucho's a English Jamaican guy, and he's known for doing records like Black Uhuru. He did did almost all the Black Uhuru records, and he did Big Audio Dynamite, and like Dennis Boval, and like all these heavyweights.
Yeah.
And so I sat in a studio with Groucho for about 9 months, and that was the best education I could have ever got in my life. Man, I learned so much from Groucho. Man, I learned all about dub, and anyway, that was the really positive aspect of the Grace project for me, was getting to know and learning from Groucho. Was really the most positive, the most positive thing that I got out of that experience.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard his name before, but I didn't realize who he was connected to in that way. Yeah, that is probably the best takeaway you could have had from that. I mean, again, though, having a production credit on a Grace Jones record, not too shabby either, not too bad. So dub seems to be a through line into a lot of the work that you do, and and if you just the continuity, I guess, of your production style. Can you talk a little bit about the Pistel Dub Collective, kind of the project that you
yeah. Well, I started doing solo records, and like I said, I had I've always I'm just a big fan of that style. King Tubby, Mad Professor, Lee Scratch Perry, all that kind of stuff has really resonated with me. And then going to school with Groucho, helped me develop some of those techniques, so I've always been interested in electronic music. I've been interested in dub music. And so, I called my solo project Electronic Dub Collective, and it was a collective because I worked with a number of friends.
Right.
And so I did, I guess, what have I done? 3 solo records and 1 EP. One, it's a little more electronic, and then, 2 of them are more electronic, and then 2 of them, I have Electronic Dub Collective 2 and 3. And they're, it's just a style I embraced, and I'm
a huge fan of the Pistel Dub Collective stuff, man. I really, really dig that a lot. And it seems like that would be a natural progression and outgrowth of what you're doing at Room 5. And I want to shift gears here a little bit and talk to you about your studio. I know you've had it there for some time, and then the most obvious and the thing that always kind of comes up is we're in the middle of this shitstorm pandemic situation, right? And maybe we can talk a little bit about, just Room 5 and what your plans are moving forward with Room 5, and then kind of how the overlay with the pandemic and COVID has impacted what you're doing.
Yeah, well, so I've run Room 5. It's my personal studio, and I've run it for almost 20 years now. I've been in the same space.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess my kind of concept for the whole thing is to bring my experience and really high quality gear into a low overhead environment, and run basically a working class studio that is affordable for artists and musicians to come work at, but delivers very high quality results. That's kind of my mission. That's my mission statement. I just made it up right now. That's kind of the thing is being a working class musician all my life. I've always needed places to work, and I'll shout out to my old buddy Jonathan Burnside, who was the owner of Razor's Edge in San Francisco, and back in the late '80s, when I was doing live sound, but I really didn't know my way around a studio other than my 4-track and my drum machine. One day, Jonathan Burnside gave me the keys to Razor's Edge and said, "Hey, no one's in here late at night. Come on in, do your thing." And that's, how I got the foundation of, I made a bunch of bad recordings until they started sounding good, or better.
Yeah.
And it was a small room. It wasn't the record plant. It wasn't, it wasn't even different fur, but it was, it was a working class space with good gear, and and it was affordable, and that's the kind of vibe that I want to bring. I mean, I'm hoping the Bay Area will get more affordable again for artists and musicians, and and I'm here.
Yeah. So, moving into this situation now with Room 5, you've had it there kind of as a foundational place for you to work at and produce things that you have personally been attached to. As you're working with other artists and musicians through the studio, how has the relationship building been? Because I think of when I think of you as a producer, I feel like there's a family of artists and musicians that you've already kind of have these good working relationships with. I think obviously, Jack Dangers. I think of John Druckmann of the Bass Kitten. I think of Lynn Farmer's projects up to and including. There's like a family tree basically of Mark Consolidated and MC 900 Foot Jesus. There are all these different acts that are involved. When it gets to the sort of, and I can attest to this because, personal plug, I'm working on a record with you right now as well. And I just have to say, as somebody who has been working with you, has been working in Room 5, first of all, the fucking gear in there is like an electronic music nerd's wet dream. Like, you have every possible amazing, I mean, it's just like, I just feel like
I can't compete with Jack with my synth collection, but I try.
Well, I'll have to get on the Jack Danger studio tour and see compare and contrast. But I gotta say, Room 5, sincerely, it is like it's like a Willy Wonka's techno factory. It's amazing to see what you have in there. But
right.
And I think when you and I first started talking, it was just through like mutual friends, something like that, and I emailed you, and it was pretty direct. But how are you connecting with people who might be interested in working with you right now?
Well, mostly word of mouth, really. Yeah. I don't advertise.
Yeah.
I'm not a commercial business per se. I don't. The studio's not open to the public, but I'm open to the public. But usually I find that most of the folks I work with are friends or friends of friends, and word of mouth and folks come in, and that's what I enjoy about it is I like working with people that I like. That's a big part about having a private studio. I don't really have to work with assholes,
Yeah. Well, and I think it's always good. I mean, I think that people that I know that have I've talked to about the project that I'm working on and other things about specifically around Room 5 and you, they're always like, I would love the opportunity to work with somebody who understands, that and I just find that dynamic really interesting. I mean, for obvious personal reasons, but obviously, there's a lot to be said about creating a community of artists and musicians that come together in a common workspace to kind of have that dialogue creatively and to do that. So, you and I talked about this a little bit offline, but you are involved in a project right now it's not in Room 5, but it's Room 5 adjacent at the facility where you are. That's going to be kind of a streaming studio situation. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, well, so my studio is at a big warehouse, and the warehouse is called Secret Studios, and there's a number of rehearsal rooms, and there are a couple of other recording studios in here. And my friend, guy I've known for years, a guy named Bill Langton, has a new room in here, and they set up a green screen. And so we have a small amount of audio gear, very, very minimal amount of audio gear in there. And he's got a bunch of cameras and a green screen. And we just did a test run the other day with this band called the Latin Killers. Yeah, so basically the band can come in, they can perform live. We can give them a stereo mix that they can use, for their streaming, or they can edit the videos and do a playback of their live performance. And then at the same time, we also have a multi-track system so that they can record multi-track while they're performing. And if they want to go in and get a more produced studio mixed version from their multi-track, we offer that as well. And it's just a new thing that we're trying to get off the ground.
That's excellent. Well, it sounds like, even with things being where they are right now with the pandemic, that you're definitely forging ahead and pushing forward. And, I really look forward to, seeing what happens and with Room 5 and evolving with Room 5, because I know, there's going to be some cool things that are happening there, over the next 6 months to the year. So I'm very excited to see what's coming out of that. Mark, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. Did you want to shout out anyone before we head out?
Well, let's see. No, I think I'm good. I think we covered everything. I do want to shout out PDF. That's an EP that we just put out. You mentioned John Druckmann and Lynn Farmer. PDF is Pistel, Druckmann, and Farmer, and we have an EP that we just put out a couple months ago now, and that's on Bandcamp. So I can shout that out. I also want to give a shout out to my friends from Chicago in the band Real. That's R34L, Real. That's a band that I've been collaborating with, and we have an EP that's going to be released in the next couple of months. Electronic flavored, me collaborating with them. Let's see what else. Another shout out. I'm working on a very fun project right now, and it's called The Boobles, and it is a Beatles parody record about breasts. And
yes,
and and it is. It's a benefit, and what's the name of the all proceeds are being donated to the Breast Cancer Research Foundation, and it's just it's just really silly, but the music tracks are recorded pretty accurately, so I'm trying to put my best George Martin cap on and and mix that. So that's a project I'm currently mixing. And and of course, no, that's about it.
Well, I mean, the roster of people you would have to go through to do proper shout outs would be pretty immense, my friend. So
yeah, well, that's on my desk at this very moment.
Well, okay, so we'll look out for PDF. We will look out for the new Consolidated record. I think you tentatively said it's going to drop like end of October. That's kind of what you guys are looking at.
Exactly.
So we'll be looking for the new Consolidated record. I am super excited to be working with you in any capacity, Mark, and I really appreciate your time today, and wish you well and be safe during the pandemic. and we'll see you soon, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Stephen. Thanks for having me. It's
all right. Thank you. All right, man. Take care. Talk to you soon.
Bye.